Okay, so upon opening the package, it is two different sets. I'll leave the links in the description. Basically, you're going to get your speaker. This is a 6.5. What it means is 6.5 inches by diameter. Like I said, this is the size that goes in the door as well as the rear of the Toyota Celica. And it's also going to have 1-inch tweeters. This is another kit that I bought. Obviously, you can use any brand. I just chose these, the Rockford Fosgates, because they're cheap and they're decent quality. Anything is an upgrade from the stock Toyota cardboard speakers from the year 2000. And so we're going to go with these. Basically in the kit you have the speaker itself, you have the little cover. For a Toyota Celica you don't need the covers, so we can just toss those, as well as the tweeter. And then the tweeter comes with this adapter. So it really just depends on your car. For the Toyota Celica we don't need this adapter. We're just going to use the one that's already on the back. To get it apart you just twist it, it'll come apart. I'll show you that later on in the video. Set that aside. Chef, where'd you put my shoes? You look guilty. Did you eat them? Okay, so first we're going to need to untwist all the screws. Some of them are hidden, but I'm going to show you where they're all at. So grab just a small flat edge screwdriver and a rag just so you don't stab into the plastic, make it all ugly. Basically, just unlock the door like that. Go ahead and stick the screwdriver in. This one you don't really need the rag. And this one just pries out this way. Just be careful. Just play around with it a little bit and it'll come. Okay, then we have 2 screws covered right here, 1 and 2. So once again, grab your flathead screwdriver. And these, they just have a little wedge right here. Stick it in, just pry up. Be careful not to chip them. Probably want to use a rag. There's one, so you can see that. And we'll get this one right here. Okay, then to get this door panel off, there's a few screws. I'll show you each location. Starting at the top, we have the 2 we just uncovered. 1, move down. 2, I think we popped off here. 3, come down to the very bottom. We have 1 right here, 4, and 1 right here. That's 5, and then just 1 right up in here at an angle. That one's just right there, just so you can see that. Let's go ahead and untwist all those, and we'll get the panel off. Next, grab a decent-sized Phillips screwdriver or a drill if you have one, and then just untwist all the screws. And the last piece of trim you got to get off is just this triangle, kind of where the mirror is. Grab your flathead screwdriver, just wedge it in the top, and just pry straight out. You'll see it comes off just like that, and it just lifts out. When it came out, this little pin came out. To fix it, you just slide that back into the groove, so that way when we're putting it back together, it just snaps in, that pops into the hole. And then to get the whole door off, just start at the bottom, grab it by the edges, and just kind of pry around it. Sometimes if you have a pry tool that helps, or a flat edge, and you just kind of pull up on it. And then once it's swinging like this, you don't want to rip it up and off or the trim will come off. You just grab the door, lift it straight up, and wiggle it, and it's off. Be careful because the actuator and the door lock controls are still connected. Alright, then to remove the actuator controls on this clear piece, just lift it straight up out of that groove, then just pull it straight out. It's a little ball like that. That one goes in the bottom, just remember that. This one did the same thing. Pull it straight up. And then with this, it actually just pulls straight out. Just to line it up. There we go. Alright, now that we have the door off, as you can see, we have access to the speaker and the tweeter. Okay, so we'll start with the tweeter. To do that, all you gotta do, just grab it right here, untwist this little screw. Don't drop it like I did, and this whole bracket comes off. Then you'll notice it's still plugged in, so just push down on this pin, pull that straight out, just like that. Set that aside, and while you're at it, just unplug this speaker wire clip right here. Just push this little pin in, wiggle up on it. There we go. Alright, and then this part depends on how you're gonna do it. If you want, you can buy like adapter brackets. They're like $13 a piece. What I'm actually gonna do is just rip this built-in speaker out and use this as the bracket. Obviously you don't want to remove this whole plastic piece, so when you install the new speaker, it kind of sticks in there and you won't be able to roll the window down. And if you have it metal to metal, it's gonna vibrate with some bass. So basically, let's just cut this part out. Just poke a hole in it on the edge, just kind of cut around it. It's kind of ghetto. You'll see, we'll make it look nice, like that. Just keep ripping around it. There, and then just pull this whole cone out. Just pull the wires, those don't matter. Okay. Then just to clean up the edges, just peel off the excess of this, I guess it's just silicone rubber. Just get all that out of there. And one other thing you want to do, you want to remove this white piece entirely, because that was the old plug. So to do that, alright, now that we have access, what you're going to want to do, try to put your speaker in. As you're going to notice, there's too much, you know, it won't go in all the way. So what you got to do, get a saw or a file. You just got to cut these rings out. Just like that, this whole center comes out. Just part of the old speaker, you can toss it. Alright, with all that cut out, what you'll want to do is just sand them down with some sandpaper, and also just wipe out all the dust, the dirt. Obviously if they're too sharp or too pointy, you don't want your cone with like big bass notes scraping against it. It'll rip a hole in the cone, ruin your speaker. These ones it's okay, I'm gonna clean it up, then we'll install the speaker. Alright, so some people, they like to buy the adapter that plugs into the stereo speaker part that went in here, and then that adapter would you know, plug onto your solder points, and these ends would plug onto the back of the speaker. But the way I'm doing it, it's a little different. Obviously I don't want to buy the adapter because it's a waste of money when you could just solder it together. You don't have to solder it, you could even tie them together and then just electrical tape it. Just make the connections clear and strong, it'll be just fine. With that being said, we don't need this clip anymore, so just leave as much wire as you can and just cut it right here. Now we'll have these two loose ends to strip and then solder to the other wires. Alright, now you can see I stripped off about 1/4 inch. Basically we're going to connect these wires to these. Like I said, you could solder it, you could electrical tape it, you could twist them together, just any way, whatever your preferred method is. Alright, and just to let you know, this is negative, this is positive. So the wire that comes from this positive terminal needs to go to this positive lead. The negative terminal, this black, needs to go to the negative terminal. Okay, once those are snug in there, just want to crimp down on them. Just grab your tool, put it in the slot, and just crunch. Do it to the other side, lock it in place, crunch, and there's maybe in the middle for good measures. There, it's pretty strong. Alright, now that we got those all connected, now we just need to connect our leads to our speaker. So basically, obviously you're not going to run it through this way, so feed it through that hole that we punched out earlier. This little hole right here, just feed those into here. Might have a little bit too much slack, but it's better than not enough. We'll scrunch it up, make sure it's not in the way of anything. Alright, and as you can see, so that way we can connect these to the speaker and just drill it into place and tuck all this in. Alright, now that we have these connected, go ahead and tuck in your wire and then just make sure it's a good fit. And as you can see, it's perfect. It's just a piece of plastic. Basically we're going to drill this in, but before we do that, like I said, with this set of speakers, the tweeters, instead of tying into the stereo wiring up here, they actually just tie onto the back of it with the positive and the negative, and so we're going to do that now. Alright, then to do the tweeter, obviously you have your tweeter as well as the two leads right here. So basically just take the tweeter, it's going to go somewhere up here. If you want, you can choose to use that metal bracket we took off earlier, or I'll show you another method. Basically we're just going to feed these just into here, same little hole we created earlier. And this is going to go somewhere or up here. So to mount your tweeter, like I said, there's two methods. First, you can take the OEM bracket. You're going to want to pull this wire off as well as this old speaker. To remove that, you just untwist it. These are a real pain to get off. If you untwist that, just rip off the speaker, this capacitor, as well as this factory wiring, and you can take that same screw and then somehow just find a way to drill this piece on, and then it'll go just like that. Obviously you'll want to remove this so that it fits into this piece right here. That'll go behind it just like that. And let me show you the other way. Then the other way, which I'm going to be doing with mine, is I'm going to take this factory cover and just pop it out. You just push on it, it wiggles out just like that. Then we're actually just going to use the one that came with the speaker, just like this. It's going to go here. Basically you're going to have to drill this out, so this will fit right there. This will go just right behind it. It'll connect just like that. And then just to show you what that looks like when it's done, obviously like I said, you have the outer ring here and then the speaker here. Alright, then as you can see here, we drilled it out a little bit more. It's still got some burrs, so I'm going to go ahead and sand those off. So you can see I also dropped the drill bit on it and it scratched up the surface. try to sand that out or something. Worst case, just buy a new door panel from the junkyard. But now this ring is gonna fit right in here, just like that. I left it so there's a bunch of resistance, so that way it just stays in, just like that. Okay, and now we take our ends that we fed through here for the tweeter. Before we mount the speaker, we obviously want to connect the tweeter so it has power. So to do that with this specific speaker, you actually just tie it on to each piece. Let me get that to focus. So as you can see, the bigger one for the tweeter is positive. It's going to slide right onto here. And the negative, smaller one, it's going to slide right onto here. Alright, and just like that, as you can see, I was able to wire on the positive of the tweeter as well as the negative of the tweeter right here. And then just the two main leads that go into the power. Sorry, we got some big boy over there with a small dick trying to flex in this big truck. I don't know, he's gone. Anyway, that's how you do it. Okay, and before we go ahead and install it, obviously you want to test it. So to do that, put your key in the ACC, turn on your radio, pump something, and make sure on the bass that the speaker is firing out. What I mean by that is if you wire it backwards on like the bass note where it's supposed to boom out, it'll actually suck in and just messes with the sound quality. So just to kind of demonstrate that, let me just play something with a hit. Alright then, to install the speaker, so what we're going to want to do, fit it in there. You can kind of tell which way is up, just face them all the same way. So to do that, you're going to want to pull out all the slack. Just like that, that's how it's going to go. And basically just put like 2 to 3 screws in it. Your speaker usually comes with screws, so just do 1, 2, 3 at least, the more. 3 to 4 is fine. Alright, now you got your screws screwed in. Make sure it's in there secure, make sure all the slack is out of here. Then just test it one last time before we do the tweeter. Okay, then you're going to take your tweeter. As you can see, we have all this slack. One thing I should have mentioned, you can always cut it and kind of bundle it up, but if you don't know how to solder and stuff like that, you can always just take a zip tie. Alright, and as you can see, I kind of zip tied them up and just tucked them behind this plastic just for more weather, water protection. Just left this dangling out. So now all I got to do is mount the door panel back on and just twist this back in. One thing I forgot to mention, now that you have a new speaker in, it actually sticks out like maybe 1/8 of an inch more than the factory one. So this ring, if you try to put the door panel on now, it's going to pop out a little bit. So we actually have to take like a part of the circumference off of here. So to do that, I'm just going to take a knife and slowly just trim a little bit off the edge all the way around, so that way it sits flat again. And before you attach your speaker and put the door on, make sure to connect these or else your door and your lock's not going to work. Alright, and this is the hardest part of the whole thing. To get the door on, like I said, I have the speaker attached as well as the handle and the lock. But you actually have to latch this top rail on and then push the door into place. So to do that, just kind of line it up, pull the bottom outward. Just kind of push down on it from there. As you can tell, you can hear it coming out of here, and then here as well. You can even feel it.